So in our last session, we discussed about entering the text into the input fields and clicking on the submit button. So we covered those things like typing some text into the input field. So in a similar fashion, if we have something called radio buttons like this, other check boxes. So we need to make sure that how we can handle these things. And similarly, there is a drop down. So drop downs interactions would be little different when compared to any other elements interaction, because if the drop down is having a select class, so if you right click here on the drop down, you will get to know like by using which class developers has developed this drop down. If you see select here, so Selenium supports a different way of handling this drop down. So normally we will just identify the locator of this particular element and we used to perform click or type operations. Whereas if you have a drop down and that is developed using a select class, so Selenium supports a different mechanism to handle. For example, there are three different options. Usually, if you wanted to do any action, you will just identify the XPath of this particular element, and you will try to perform an action called, click. So, but if you wanted to perform any interaction with the help, that element is present inside drop down, you have different option, the different mechanism. So before that, we'll try to write a script to handle this thing like radio button. Okay, so I already have some code for this. Yeah, for example, this is the XPath that I have already added for radio buttons. So we have earlier discussed, right? If it is a drop radio button, you will see the, where is that? You will see the attribute for the radio button as a radio. Attribute name is type and its value is radio. So if you wanted to identify that radio button, you have to write an XPath. So what is our common syntax for writing an XPath? First of all, we have to give double slash and then we have to pass the tag name for that. For example, let's identify what is the tag name for this. So what is the tag name? Input.
Input ID. Input.
Even if it is having ID, but we wanted to identify this with the help of some other option like XPath. You can directly use the ID since it is having ID, but in case if this particular element is not having ID, I'm giving you an example how you can write an XPath for this.
Okay.
So what is the tag name? Tag name is input, and you have to give square brackets and type @ and you have to identify what is unique. For example, if you have three different radio buttons, let me copy the complete element here. You will identify the difference between each of the radio buttons. What is common and what is not common for between the elements. I'm just copying the element. So this is the element for Honda radio button. Similarly, we'll try to identify the bench elements radio button. Bench radio buttons element. Just copy the element and what is the other thing? BMW. So these are the developers code. Like if the developers added this particular piece of code, then only we will see these radio buttons in a UI. So now what is our duty is we need to interact with these things, right? And we have to identify what is common between these three and what is not common. For example, let's assume this doesn't have any IDs and names. because if any element that contains ID and name, we can directly you make use of that because those are unique values, so we can directly use. But some places you won't see these IDs and names, and developers just adds value and type. So in that case, you have to go for writing an XPath. So here, in order to write an XPath, so radio is the radio button. Radio is to denote that particular element is a radio button. And if you just try to write an XPath like input at the rate type equal to radio, you will see three different matches like type equal to radio. So there are three different matches, but you wanted to uniquely identify which
Yeah.
radio button you wanted to click, right? So in order to do that, you can write one more condition called write and at the rate value equal to, for example, I wanted to click on BMW's radio button. I'll just give that XPath. So that's the way of identifying any element if that particular element doesn't have IDs and names. So this is one XPath that I just shown you. Like it is for Honda. For example, radio buttons functionalities. For example, if you click here Honda, and now whenever you click on bench, the previously clicked will be unchecked. That's the behavior of any radio buttons group. Because at a time you would be able to click on any one of the option. If it is a group of radio buttons, I mean these radio buttons belongs to the same group. That's the reason whenever you click on one button, the others would be unchecked automatically. But whereas if it is checkbox, group of checkboxes, then you can click on any one of them. So programmatically, I am trying to show the same. Like whenever you click on Honda, BMW, and then you wanted to click on BMW. I mean, first you clicked on Honda radio button, and you wanted to click on BMW's radio button. The previous would be unchecked. So I'll just try to run it normally.